the breaking news that came out last night, and that was that the Trump administration was working with Israel because Israel had planned an attack in Iran, and they said, hold off, before we do that, before we move to a military option, let's see if we can get to the table. And we know precisely that's what's happened. Now, these reports come out. Obviously, a war between Israel and Iran would have to be supported by the United States of America and our needs and whatever we have to utilize to help them. And I think that is where it got a little bit hairy for this administration, saying we don't want, as we've learned, the Trump administration is not war hungry to jump in and do these kind of things.
That's right. This report out of the New York Times details that Israel had plans to attack nuclear sites in Iran in May, so just 2 weeks from now. And it gives a lot of detail that originally the plan was set for November, but Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted it to be earlier than waiting that long and wanted it in May. They were optimistic that the United States would sign off on this, but it took a lot more than just the United States signing off on this. The United States would have to be an integral part of this. They would have to not only help defend Israel from retaliation, but many of the plans included the U.S. itself conducting bombings because of the 30,000-pound bunker busters that we have in our arsenal to get into some of these nuclear sites. Israel would need U.S. support for this to be successful. And as of right now, the President Trump, after consulting with Susie Wiles, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense and the DNI, that he has decided to stick with this diplomacy plan, of which we have round 2 of just this weekend.
And that's for now. Remember that. We're not saying never, because look, with Iran, who knows how these are going to go. But you know what? I am happy with an administration that's willing to have these conversations with a country like Israel that we obviously are very supportive of, but say, you know what? We appreciate your thoughts, your plans, but first, let's see if we can avoid more bloodshed. And I think that is very important. I think that's important as America moving forward, that we aren't always just jumping into a war that we have to support or not. Whether we support the war with Iran or not, it may be something that we say as an American people, you know what? Enough is enough. But let's not start there. That doesn't have to be day one. Let's get to the negotiation table. Same with like what happened with Russia and Ukraine. We picked a side really quick and decided we were going to support them with equipment and money and funding. And look, I think we all know how that's going and how the American people have soured on a lot of what we've done there. We know that's what happened in Iraq, where eventually people kind of soured on what we were doing there. So the American people, though, they are happy to immediately respond because we have those kind of hearts that want to jump out and help. I do think it's good that you have a president who's willing to take a breath, listen to those advisors around him, and realize he put together a team that people voted for, and that team is not a warmonger team.
And I think this is what's really fascinating with the state of the current administration, the Republican Party, and even the people within the cabinet, is that once again, as much as the left wants you to think that President Trump is trigger happy, just wanting to press that button to send missiles at our enemies, he was listening to counsel from his advisors. And specifically, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, brought to the table new intelligence that, with an assessment that the buildup of American weaponry could potentially spark a wider conflict with Iran, which the U.S. doesn't want. And Ms. Gabbard, as reported, along with Susie Wiles, the chief of staff, the defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, who has been very vocally saying we will not hesitate to use a military option against Iran, and J.D. Vance all voiced their doubts about the attack, which ultimately the president chose we are going to continue. We are going to do tough negotiations, and we're going to see if we can get something out of that before resorting to what should be the last resort, a military strike. Rick, just shifting topics here a little bit. This is what we kind of led the show with, talking about this piece that came out in the New York Times last night that President Trump waved off an Israeli strike after divisions emerged in his administration, obviously trying to pit it, drive a wedge between the cabinet here by the New York Times saying, there's the hawks and there's those that are less hawkish and there's division now. But you read this and what it seems is that even those that are much more hawkish, as they may say, looked at intelligence, read what was going on, and decided that they wanted to take a more diplomatic approach before going to airstrikes that we would have to have aided the Israelis in as soon as a few weeks from now. Obviously, we know the media is going to spin this, but am I reading that right? It just actually seems like a very well-functioning administration that doesn't want to go to war as the first option?
Yeah, look, I would add this is the New York Times, they just criticize no matter what. For a while, they were saying that there's no debate in the Trump administration, that everybody thinks the same way. Now they're saying, oh, my gosh, there's such a debate that there's a division. I view it as a real positive that Donald Trump wants differing views. He's not afraid to have a debate. And matter of fact, I've been in the Oval Office enough to know that if everyone does agree on something, Donald Trump is the first one to make sure that we actually have a debate. He'll look for ways to make people debate because he wants to hear both sides. He wants to hear all sides. He wants people to debate in front of him as to what is important and what's not important, and what priorities does one person see as the top priority, and then someone else argues for a different aspect. That is a healthy system. I think people should feel very good that when Donald Trump is in the Oval Office, he's getting a diverse set of views, and then he makes the decision.
Let's go to Scott, who's calling in Nevada on line 4. Scott, welcome.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I wanted to touch on the Iranian situation just real quickly.
Sure.
I was thinking that if there was ever going to be a time, and I'm not a war hawk, but if there was ever going to be a time where we're going to do something, this might be the time. The Chinese economy is very bad and they have their own issues, and the Russians certainly can't provide weaponry or money to the Iranians to help them out, and nobody else in the Middle East has, a taste for wanting to do battle on the Iranian side. So if there was going to be a time where we wanted to impede their nuclear program, this is probably it, because even a regime change probably won't change the fact that they're going to pursue a weapon.
Scott, and I think that is a big argument from the Israelis as well. They have decimated Hezbollah, and the opportunity for attacks from Gaza are not as active right now. Obviously, it's still conflict, but just the multi-front war that Israel's had since October 7th, and now even with the bombing campaign from the U.S. on the Houthis, it has really taken out a lot of the Iranian proxies. The Assad regime fell. So Iran is very isolated from its traditional proxy partners. Russia, as you mentioned, having their own war going on, and China with the economy. But also remember, President Trump did give kind of a date that Iran has to get this all done by. It's not just this open-ended 4 years, keep going. I don't think that necessarily the trade war and the economic issues China has are going to be wrapped up anytime soon, as the way it looks, the war with Ukraine necessarily ending before that window closes. So I don't think that it is a forever putting this off. And the Trump administration needs also to have that threat of military strike and decimating of Iran in order to kind of hold their feet to the fire in these negotiations. So I agree with your point. And I think that is very much the Israeli point of wanting to strike while the opportunity is there. But I don't know that window closes if we don't strike in the month of May.
We are so excited to announce the ACLJ's brand new app, completely redesigned to provide you with the best tools available to partner with us at the ACLJ. You can watch the daily Secular program, sign the petitions, customize your ACLJ membership experience, donate with the click of a button, and receive up-to-the-minute critical updates that the mainstream media can't censor. Just scan the QR code on your screen or go to your phone's app store, search ACLJ, and click install. It's that simple.